Hi, everyone. My name is Olesja Hennikainen, and I'm going to be your next speaker for the next half an hour slot. I'm super excited to be here, and I'm very excited and very glad for Mimit Koda to invite me. I work as a consultant, so I'm a technology innovation strategy manager by my title, but I work as experience designer for XR, extended reality or virtual reality and all other related technologies, as well as AI and metaverse. And I work daily with innovation. I work at Accenture, it's a consultancy company. So today I was invited to come and talk to you about work of consultant, what our daily life is like. And let's go ahead. So I have literally 3 objectives for today. Demystify the daily life of consultancy. What is it that we consultants do? And I wanted to do that by sharing my personal career story, the different kind of mindsets I learned as a consultant. There's going to be some cliches, but I'm going to justify them with personal examples, so it's going to be fun. And above all, I want you to inspire about technology, about the future, emerging technologies, and getting new skills and growth, because this is daily life for us consultants. So I thought it would be really nice to share. So let's go ahead. First, I want to tell you quickly about Accenture. Accenture is a vast, large company. People usually get surprised that we have roughly almost 800,000 of employees. I usually picture this way. Imagine if everybody in Helsinki would work at Accenture, and that's like a little around 600,000 people. That's like an entire city, right? And that's not even enough to cover how much people globally work at Accenture. So we work in over 50 countries. We have clients in very many industries. We are one of the largest companies in the world, and we are a technology consultancy company. So our clients' industries range from very different. It can be telecoms, it can be industrial products and services, very, very different. And yeah, one of the largest consultancy companies. So it's a little bit different dynamic if you would be working in a small consultancy company, because networking inside Accenture is already like a full-time job. So let's talk about consultants. What do consultants actually do? And I wanted to put this really, really funny picture for you. And I prompted this in Midjourney, an AI generation tool. So imagine a funny Barbie consultant looking very, very modern and working with emerging technologies and holograms. And this is what Midjourney came up with as an image, right? Does my daily work look like this? Well, not really, but I wanted to include this as a funny joke, because when I started in consultancy, this was 6 years ago, and I worked in technology before, so I worked at Nokia and at Vaisala before. So there's always, you all know, right, this kind of a women in technology as a phenomenon. And as a woman in technology, sometimes we're shy, sometimes we want to prove our voice and our substance and that we know things. And we had a Halloween party at the office, and I thought, what am I going to dress up with? And I thought, hey, I'm going to dress up as a Barbie. Everybody is afraid of women in technology, so why not just dress up in a pink outfit? And everybody's going to be thinking, oh, this Barbie doesn't know anything. And I came to work, and I was wearing a pink outfit and a pink bag and pink shoes, everything pink. And one of my colleagues said, what did you dress up with? And I said, don't you see, I'm a Barbie consultant. And then they said, oh, but you look like yourself, you look like every day. So I thought that I'm going to own it. This is fun. Women in technology need to have equal career opportunities and growth and so forth. So regardless of the gender, regardless of this of kind of like background, everybody has to have a space in technology. So, but coming back to the question, so enough with the humor, let's go to the serious things. So what do consultants actually do? And the first question probably to ask is, what kind of a consultant? In a company like we are, technology consultancy, we have very different types of consultants. So somebody can be very, very technical. They have their expertise in niche, and they can be, for example, solution architects or working with specific technology. So very kind of focused on technology skill and have their own expertise. And then obviously we have very many strategy and business consultants who do things like calculate return of investments and business values and work with figures and so forth. Then there are obviously creative consultants. This is where I put myself in this box. So it can be, for example, It can be service design, experience design. We also have people who are UI designers and storytellers and so forth. So when we say consultant, it's a very general term. As for me, my career in consultancy, so I usually kind of define the tasks and skills that I have into these 4 columns. First is managerial. So you can find me in a role something like project manager, program manager, scrum master, delivery manager, if we're integrating a project or solution building, a bid manager. So this revolves around daily sprints, sprints planning, different types of managerial tasks, exactly what project managers do, right? So I also have to have soft skills like motivate the team and take care of the communications and talk to stakeholders, everything what project manager does. And then there's another pillar. It's the creative and design part. So I'm self-taught service designer. I design services. I work with design thinking ideologies. I do a lot of workshop facilitation, UX design for different concepts, or just in general concept design. But one of my niche that I was able to kind of grow and develop most is extended reality UX design. It's a little bit different. We're no longer talking about flat design on the screen of the computer, right? You are in immersive virtual space. You're interacting with 3D objects. So all of the interactions logic is very, very different. You don't want to read in virtual reality. You want to touch things. It has to be intuitive and these types of things. So it's a very different experience design. And that's what I usually do. And right now, for example, I'm in a project. We're working on an industrial solution, how to build future factories, but you are able to preview that factory in virtual space. And you're able to talk to Gen AI to help you build the environment. So the client is going to get a hyper-realistic 3D CAD model on Omniverse platform before they can actually see the real factory, the physical space. So this is an example of a project I work in. So in that particular project, I'm in several roles. I do UX lead, I do experience design for extended reality, but I also work with a product ownership team. We collect requirements, we make sure that we develop the right features and we develop them correctly. So this is kind of like creative and managerial example of a project. Requires a lot of customer journey mapping and then user requirements collection and so forth. Then there's another pillar, strategy. And I come from strategic background. I studied strategic management. So these are usually the projects or initiatives I'm involved with. For example, I worked in a project that we were creating innovation process for a company. So how would they innovate better? How they have a better innovation pipeline, how they induce innovation culture, how they have innovation sessions to get them better innovating for their products. So this is another example of a project what I might have. And obviously I do a lot of kind of a workshopping around how might we use this specific technology for a client and their industry? And that can be AI, that can be XR, that can be something else as well. So we're trying to come up with solutions how to utilize. And I'm not the kind of a business consultant that will be calculating the value or how much cost savings it's going to bring, but I'm going to be helping to find this right concept for the client. And then I have a wild card. I do a lot of event production. I do a lot of public speaking occasionally and lecturing. So this is like my skills palette, and I've built it by accident, so to say, piece by piece while I was moving in my career. And when I asked ChatGPT, when I was preparing the slides, what do consultants do? I was actually surprised, because if you compare this slide to the one I just prepared and showed you, it literally says the same things. We analyze business needs, yes. We provide strategic advice, yes. We design and implement solutions, absolutely. We are project managers. Everybody might have their own specialization. So it's not written in a stone. They're very different consultants, and I encourage to try consultancy because I at least find it personally super fun. So how did I get here? This is a part about my personal career story. I moved to Finland in '97, and I didn't speak a word in Finnish. Obviously, I'm fluent now. And I didn't know what to do when I grow up. So I went to Arcada to study business. And I did a bachelor in business. And I was working at that time in a political youth organization. So I did a lot of campaigning, youth work, and so forth. And then I ended up at Nokia. So that was my first technology company. And I worked there 5 years as an executive assistant as well as assistant in different projects. And I was lucky enough to get a position at some point, and my boss was actually direct subordinate from the leadership team. So it was pretty high up in the organization. And I figured it out, in my 20s, that's the only possibility that I can get so high in the organization hierarchy as an assistant. I'm going to take it. And that was the biggest learning curve for me. So I started thinking, what do I want to be when I grow up? And I figured out from the inside of the company, communications, probably not that. HR, maybe not my thing. Am I willing to go to study to another university to do a technical degree? Probably not. And then I figured out I want to do strategy, corporate strategy. So that was a decision point. And after my job at Nokia finished, I went to Hanken and I did a degree in strategic management. And I tried consulting afterwards in a smaller company, and I did short period of time, but that wasn't my thing. And I thought, yeah, consulting is not my thing. The company was small, the industry was paper, wood, and energy, and I was like, I'm not really excited about this. So I tried it, and I quit it, and then I went to work at Vaisala, so it's another technology company. And there I was an assistant, and then later I ended up doing digital customer experience with all the renewals, and I taught myself service design. And after that, I end up at Accenture, and I never looked back. But at the same time, while I was learning and growing in my career, I was also doing lots of things outside work. So, for example, I ran for parliament, I did lots of political youth organizations, I do a lot of fashion illustration, so I draw art when I want to relax, when I'm not working. And I illustrate, for example, books. But it was really nice. At some point, I realized that I want to do fashion illustration and art together with technology. So I ended up doing a virtual reality fashion exhibition for Helsinki Design Week event. We presented it there, and then it ended up as an exhibition at National Museum of Finland. And then we did, excited by all of that, I established a conference about digital fashion and metaverse and technology. And that was a massive success. And just kind of, looking back and thinking, all of these hobby and things that I do outside work, I've tried to combine them together, and they help me out to grow and to learn. So I think it's a really important question to ask, what do you want to be grow up? Now that I explained to you that for me it was really hard to decide what kind of career path to take, I came to thinking that, I couldn't decide what I want to be when I grow up, because the job that I do right now didn't exist. Like, no, some people are really sure, like in 5-year-old, they're gonna say, hey, I'm gonna be a doctor when I grow up. But for me, it was pretty much hard to figure out, I want to design experiences in virtual reality, because the job like this didn't exist back then. And I remember I attended one conference already in 2017. It was a technology commentary, but it was in a political conference. And then there was this one guy speaking, this member of parliament from Estonia, and he said in 2017, today in LinkedIn, there are 350,000 social media managers, this many bloggers, this many community managers. Did you know such jobs would exist 5 years ago? And he checked it, right? So 5 years before 2017, these kind of jobs didn't exist. How are politicians supposed to create jobs for future? And they can't know what's going to happen. So I think we are right now in the similar kind of like situation, but it's even exacerbated. We have Gen AI now. How can we predict what the jobs, what consultancy, what something else is going to look like in 5 years of time if we have all the time this kind of a technological advancement? So I think everybody should adopt this kind of a mindset that how will you be employable in the upcoming future? You have to watch the trends of the technology and adapt yourself to kind of go along with that. And I think that mindset alone is going to take you a lot ahead. And yeah, I think it's a really important question to ask, what is it that you want to be doing tomorrow? What your next project going to be? Because for consultancy life, at least, it's a little bit different if you work in a company with the same product or the same industry all the time. With consultancy, you're going to get like next time different products going to be different. So you need to make sure that you're going to be employable and you're ready to take up new things. That's why this learning and adapting mindset is something that I learned, and it's been helping me a lot. So now let's have a look at different things I wanted to highlight as kind of trends and mindsets or examples that I learned at work that helped me get going as a consultant. So first of all, kind of a myth. Uncertainty is scary. No, uncertainty is good. If you are in uncertainty, it means that you're learning and growing. And I remember my very first workshop at the company now. I started, and I think it was my second week, and then they said, it was a Thursday. I remember it was a Thursday because they said, hey, we're going to have clients coming in and we need to design an XR experience, how we're going to utilize virtual reality in court. So, for example, we can review different cases or how technology can help in court. And I was thinking, okay, I've never worked with XR before. This sounds challenging. And I'm like, I need time to prepare. And then on Thursday, I ask, when is this workshop? And they're like, on Monday. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to learn this thing now. And I went to talk to the PM. So I've been doing lots of research, and I was thinking, are we going to use like photogrammetry? Are we going to capture real space, or is it going to be synthetic environment? I was learning a lot about technology and possibilities. And what is this configuration? What is this concept? And I went to talk to project manager, and I said, I don't think I know what I'm doing. What kind of a concept are we going to have? And then she said, don't worry, nobody does. Nobody knows in this project what we're doing. That's the whole point of it. Nobody has done it before you either, but we need to find this solution that we can use for this specific problem. But first, we need to identify the problem. And I figured out, okay, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to take service design tools like customer journey mapping, and we are going, and service blueprinting, and we're going to blueprint a service that doesn't exist yet, and we're just going to specify what the user sees at each stage, what they experience in XR, how it's going to work together. And it wasn't actually that hard. The hardest part was getting people to talk in a workshop, because they're also doing a new thing, and to get this kind of establishing this creative process, that was the hardest part. So at some point I went to the bathroom, I looked myself in the mirror, we had a break, and I was thinking, oh no, this is not going really well at all. But then I figured it out. Nobody leaves this room before we have the concept on the paper. So I gave post-notes and pencils to everybody, and I said, best ideas, any ideas, let's put all of this together and we're gonna start drawing. So now I come to a point that you need to find your motivation to get things done. And I'm not afraid to admit that sometimes this kind of a last-minute panic, at least for me, that's one of the best ways how you get motivated. But another really important motivation is the having people around you that support you and believe in you. And I've been in several companies before this one, but specifically in this one at Accenture right now, I was very lucky to find a manager who believes in me and supports me. And then he said, you know, one of the first meetings we had in the development discussions, he said, what would you like to do? And I realized that I don't have an answer for that because I've never really thought about it. I've never had the opportunity to choose. And I'm like, can I choose anything? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. You want to choose about the skill, what kind of a role you want, and what kind of a industry you want to have, what kind of projects, where do you see yourself at? And that was a really good exercise. I did my mind mapping to figure out what do I want to be and grow up when I grow up. And then I started looking for role models in the company who are doing this kind of jobs that I would like to have as well and from whom I would like to learn. But that was a really important kind of a lesson, which brings us to the point number 3 about passion. You have to be passionate about something. So that's going to sustain your growth. And when I looked at everybody, I worked in an innovation organization. They've all been very, very innovative, and they kept on doing their own projects outside work, and then they're coding and building things. And I'm like, I need to learn to do something like this. I need to force myself to innovate. And I figured it out, you know, I want to do something with fashion and extended reality related, and how do I do that? And what I literally did is that I created a pitch deck about a potential project, how we can use extended reality to present fashion. And then I sit down my manager and I presented to him. It was like a pitch, elevator pitch. And I said, I need this kind of a budget. This is the plan. This is how we're going to market it. And he said, you can't do it on your work time, but I'm going to give you a device and I'm going to give you licenses so you can learn how to draw in XR. And let's see where we get there. So after I did that on my vacation, and he said, this looks really, really good. We're going to now get some developers to develop experience out of it. And then, to my surprise, one thing led to another. There was lots of countless hours put into this. And the last picture on this slide, we ended up doing an exhibition of virtual reality fashion in a National Museum of Finland. And never in my life would I, as a 5-year-old, would dream about something like this. And I think my point is that be open to opportunities once you put your heart in. So I started working around that specific industry. And the first picture over here on this slide is that we did in Finland first digital fashion NFT garment for designer Mert Otsamo, and we took him to Decentraland's Metaverse Fashion Week. I've been talking a lot about this topic. This is something kind of like an expertise of mine. I've done several interviews, but I've done very interesting projects. So what I'm trying to say is that skills that you can bring also, like cross-functional, into your work can be potentially very, very useful. Let's go into some other things. Identity crisis. I think one has to be really careful about comparison to other colleagues. And I'm not ashamed to admit that at some point I was thinking, should I go to an university again, get some computer science degree? And that again came to a discussion with my boss who said that, hey, look around you. Everybody here is a really great developer, but you underestimate the skills that you have. You are the kind of a bridge builder that sits down with the technical people and the clients and gets this story written down. What is the concept? How we drive this forward? Because that's not something what developers do, or maybe they can't even do it as well as you can. And that's when I started valuing my skills, and I started working on the skills that I have the best. He said, by the time you get done with your degree, do you know how much you have to catch up to be as good as them? I'm not discouraging anyone to go and learn. If you feel like learning and changing your career path entirely, that's a good thing. But also be sure that you build on the previous things that you have. So for example, I keep on improving myself in things like being a product owner, writing user stories, being a good scrum master or a project manager, because that's something what I need for my daily work. Not all of my projects are related to fashion, what I just showed you about. Not everything is a dream project, but also some projects need to get work done. So being human-centric and client-centric and being kind of able to bring this strategic perspective and business value, but also drive forward the work, that's a really important skill. It's not either or, it's that how they work together. And after all, this brings now us to the next point number 6. We are working with people, right? When I say we work with technologies, but it's people who are implementing, ideating, using technology. So all of these things about soft values, about how to make people feel good in safe environment at work, being creative in a team, not being able to speak out. As a project manager, this is something what I usually take care of. And I have people usually saying me afterwards, after a project, hey, when are you going to have a next project? I want to come back and be part of your team, because they felt good. And this is also, this kind of soft skills is something that usually is underestimated. And I find it really, really interesting. It's not only about how well you're able to code something, it's also about how you're able to construct a team with people to do their best work. And for me, that has been a really important kind of item in my work in consultancy, making kind of really good environment for clients and people to work together. Because if somebody has an AI PhD, that doesn't mean they're going to be really well explaining to the clients how they can use AI in their products. So yeah, my point, as you can see, as a red thread throughout this discussion is that every experience is valuable. And I think that's also related to point number 8. If you're not going to tell how good you are, nobody will ever find out. And that's something I learned from my literature teacher in school. He said a long time ago, when you go and have a presentation, you need to show what you know, what you've done, so people know. So it's not about like arrogance and only branding yourself. It's about showcasing what you can do so people learn about your work and they invite you to the next opportunities. So at one point between 7 and 8, I want to give you an example. I had one boss, he was working in UK and he's been working with metaverse strategies. And they were doing a proposal for a client, was a high-end fashion client in Italy. And they were producing a game, and it had to be a gamified experience for fashion. And then he said, out of all people, there was a large team, he suddenly said, hey, that girl is going to be doing the fashion collection for the game. And there were lots of people who wanted to do that, but I already established my brand that this is something I know. And he said, you have 2.5 days. And I literally had to produce a collection that was directly related to the gaming logic that they have been designing, or I've been designing together with them. And I was able to produce that in one evening, literally. But I also implemented things that I know from physics. It was incorporated around a theme. So what I'm trying to say is that my specific combination for this specific task, I had a perfect skill set that nobody could do it. Then they came back to me again for another client. They said, a client needs a metaverse fashion strategy, 10 pages, delivered in 3 days. I was able to do it in 2 nights because I've been doing research about the topic for roughly 1.5 years. So I keep on building my skills all the time. So when the opportunity comes, people know about what I can do, and then they ask me to help out. So, but there's always skeptics that you have to convince. So the last point, there always might be skeptics to convince. And I think us as women in technologies just have to shut it down and think about this. This is I know, this is where I want to grow, this is the opportunities I want to have, and you just keep pushing. But one technique that I found specifically interesting is the kind of debating technique, something I learned in university. Always think in advance what the people might be skeptical about, what questions they're going to have, what typical problems they have. So when you do your homework well and you come prepared to your meeting, every single question they're going to ask, maybe it's a hard question, you're going to have an answer for it because you already thought about it a few days ago in advance. So that's my tip. Okay, so last kind of a point. I think super important in consultancy or anything is constantly keep on learning and adapting and learning and adapting. I checked the World Economic Forum, like 10 attributes and skills. They always do this kind of forecast, right? And universities and companies do. And it's always approximately the same ones in different order. Creative thinking, technology literacy, analytical thinking, this and that. As you can see, they're very abstract. And I think this is what gives us a good opportunity to kind of shine. We're not robots, but we need to adapt and change all the time. So understanding trends and technology is a skill of its own. How you're going to adapt it and use it and do it in a creative or analytical thinking, this is what something's going to help us all to define what jobs we're going to be doing in 5 years of time. And at Accenture, we have this kind of a thing. Everybody, when they start, they do a Clifton strength analysis. And when I did this one, it has like 30-something questions, and you answer, and then it gives you what are your like strongest qualities. And I'm maximizer, strategic, achiever, analytical, and responsibility. And when I looked at the rest of the things at the scale that I don't have, it was it literally. When I answered, I was very skeptical about the test, but things that were at the end that I scored, they were exactly that didn't describe me, but these ones describe me really well. But we also did it within a project in an AI team, and then when everybody answered there, I saw there, I was lucky to be strategic and analytical, and they had the similar kind of skills in the AI team, but everything else they had different. I think it was learning and innovating and something else, but all of the other 10 guys, they literally had the same kind of a skill set. And I was the one that was very different from everyone else. And when I do it in different teams, this kind of a Clifton analysis, we see who is best at which kind of skills, and then we give out roles also based on that. Like if you are, for example, achiever or people person, would you like to do our communications? This is just one example. But I think everybody, if you have an opportunity to do some kind of a testing like this, it's going to help you find your strength. So what's next I'm passionate about? 2 things I want to cover. First, let's not be worried about AI taking our jobs and all the negative things that are coming in the media. Our former CEO wrote a book, Human Plus Machine, and he says that for future, there's going to be things that only people do. There's going to be things only machine do. We can't compete with machines in interactions amounts or predicting or reading vast amounts. But what we can do is the happy middle. We need to find tasks where we complement machines, meaning we explain what they do and how they come up with specific results, and we help to create concepts around AI. And then we do things that give us superpowers. So amplify, interact, embody. And as a personal example, for me, new creativity tools like AI will amplify my work. I don't know yet how to design immersive experiences. I can't build them, but I can use AI to build them like hyper-realistic future environments in the future. So convergence of AI and XR, or generally any kind of technologies coming together, not being unsiloed, that is the future forward. Can I use 5 more seconds? Okay, thank you. So one last question for you. I'm sorry I'm over time. One last question. So what's the best part of consultants? So you can see probably I'm very, very excited about my work. So it's always the thrill of the new. Every new project feels like a new job. You're getting new team. You're learning about new client and new industry. So if you're into that, you're fine. And then it's very, very inspiring to work with smart people. There's always going to be someone who is more smart, more competent, already have thought about something that you're struggling with. So networking and being kind of like surrounded by smart people, that's something that inspires you and makes you grow. And then finally, in consultancy, at least in our company, we have lots of opportunities to train and learn, train and learn. And it's not only about going to a course, it's also about learning on the job. Like I said in the very first example, I don't know how to do this, fine, nobody else has done this before. You're integrating now a new technology for a new client, you have to come up with the best way how to do it, and that's growing. So thank you very much for this opportunity to talk. If somebody wants to network, you can find me on LinkedIn. Let's talk about something. If you want to ask about XR, UX, or just follow the news that I post, please do. But yeah, I was supposed to demystify consultants' work. I think I did. I was supposed to say, what does the daily work look like? And I have, unfortunately, a disappointment. No 2 days in the life of a consultant are the same, so there is no typical daily life. It's learning and growing and trying new things. Thank you.